think that that's one piece for parents to realize that it's a good idea to talk about how you want to respond to
Yeah.
things. Like we plan and prepare and predict, right? And that's how we know our response to things. Like if this happens, I can do this. If
Yeah.
this happens, I can do this. So
Welcome to the Relationship Psychologist Podcast.
Tune in every Thursday to learn with us as we interview experts
And laugh with us as we banter about friendship.
and take action by implementing the tools and advice we provide to you each week to level up your personal relationships.
I'm Dayna Mullen.
And I'm Alicia Hinger.
We are soul sisters, besties, and psychologists on a mission to change the culture of relationships.
Your journey to becoming more supported and connected starts
Right now.
Welcome back.
hello there.
How are you? What?
I said fancy seeing you here.
Fancy meeting you in this podcast space.
Yes. Nice to be back.
Right? Always good to be here with you.
Always good to be here. Yeah, let's talk about some parenting today.
Okay, sounds good. You have a whole bunch of notes there I know in front of you that you want to go through. So I will be your active listener and
That's
support.
the two of us. You're the dive right in, and I'm just like your husband. I've got a sequence of things that we're going to talk about.
Right?
So, and we'll try and do this in a quick one too. We won't try not
Okay.
to be too long, but
This is a deep topic, right? So I want to, just acknowledge this is a big topic. We're not being quick because it's a quick topic. It's a huge topic. So here's some little bite-sized chunks you can try today in your parenting. And also when we practice parenting skills, we practice relationship skills. So this is good for not just your kids, but for coworkers, partners, friends, etc.
Yeah. I think one of the things that stands out the most to me as a parent, and we're both parents, is that there is absolutely no training involved, and there is absolutely no manual anywhere.
Well, there is some training involved. I mean, it's true. There's no manual, but the training we get is often not great. We're trained by our own parents, teachers, right? We're our environments. And so if you just pause and think about that, like if you just think, if you had absolutely stellar parents, high five, amazing. You can take that great manual you got from your environment and put that into what you're doing with your kids now. But if you're like most of us that didn't have the perfect environment that, we grew up in, we took that and we had to figure out what didn't work. But then to figure out what does work, you're like, here's this thing that's so important to us. And we have zero manual how to do it.
Yeah, it's true. We do. We learn from wherever we came from. Usually that, I mean, for some that can be even 75% good. But the reality is that nobody comes from this likely perfectly secure background. And yet we expect, and even if you do, let's say you come from, your memory is lovely. And it's like, I don't remember my parent yelling at me. I remember my parent being really calm. I saw my parents take good care of each other. We had a lot of supports around us. We had grandparents and aunts and uncles and cousins, and that all sounds lovely. Even if you had that, you still don't have a manual of what it's going to be like in your body when you have a baby, or if you are the other partner who is just supporting and didn't have the baby in the body. How unnatural.
You're adopted, or you're taking care of your niece or nephew, or you're, taking other kids into your home, all the things. Yeah.
All of those things, there's still no manual for how you're going to feel. So, are you exhausted? Do you feel attached to this child or not? If you're breastfeeding, does that come naturally, like it shows in those pictures that were in the doctor's office? Or is it really hard, and do you get an infection, and do you not feel like yourself anymore? And do you feel disconnected? And does your partner look at you still a certain way, and you're like, I've changed? All of those things are happening, and it's society makes it look like it's all natural and it should be for a woman, but it's not.
Yeah, should. Or that word. Should.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, I like the analogy of, say somebody who's doing their job, like something really extreme, like a surgeon, right? Or a doctor or a dentist. Let's take a dentist, for instance. Like if your friend was a dentist and they were like, I've been doing dentistry and I did a root canal and it hasn't been going very well.
Yeah.
And if you're like, oh yeah, what was your training? Like, did they tell you how to do root canals better? And they said, no, actually I didn't have any training.
Yeah. That would make sense why you don't know what the heck you're doing and why it's not going so well. Yeah. Like
Be
anything in
stressful.
life. That's stressful. Anything in life. Like, here, Dana, here's my new horse I'm going to pick up. Can you go like teach her how to do all the tricks? He'd be like, no, I have no idea. I've never been taught how to start a horse. Yeah.
And then what if the person that is going to go on the horse or the dentist says, well, I get some memes from Instagram and Facebook. I've watched a couple TikTok
Right.
videos,
Yeah.
and so I've been trying to apply those. You'd be like, wow, well, it's not really a you problem, it's a training problem. It seems like you haven't had enough support and
Yeah.
like guidance around how to be a better dentist. I
Yeah.
think we could help you there. Same for parenting. If maybe this isn't a you problem, maybe this is I'm lacking resources and support problem here.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Which actually speaks to, the idea that historically we were raised in small communities, right? We were community-based individuals, families, couples, all the things. And so we had our community to rely on. Like the idea of it takes a village to raise a child, that came from the place of community. And so that's in our nature to have our community help us with our kids, for example. And so we have other women, other men, the elders that are helping us with those things. So it wasn't a one person, one job, you're all in. That's actually impossible, I think. It's terrifying and it's exhausting. So if you're doing that by yourself and you're feeling overwhelmed, no kidding. No
Yeah.
kidding. Because these little
Yeah.
dictators that we have in our home, these things we call children, they're amazing, but they require a lot. And it's
Yeah.
also an investment. We want to invest in them a lot. We want to give them a lot. We want to give them all the foundation, all the tools, all the things we're talking about today, all the tools to grow into an evolving, good human, good society person, good community, good parent, of their kids in the future. It's a lot of effort and it's a lot of input into their system because we come pretty dependent. Like human beings, right, are very dependent little creatures when they're born. And so it's a lot of dependence on the system. And so if you're the system by yourself, man, you're a lot of work ahead of you. So to
Yeah.
cultivate that community is massive. And I think we overlook that or underlook that, the importance of that.
Well,
And even
and
shame each
Alicia,
other for that.
that's what I was just going to say. It actually, in our culture, I really feel like in North America anyway, that women were expected to be able to do it. Like you should be able to. In Canada, where we live, we get a year to 18 months off if you
Right.
work for somebody, to be able to stay at home with the child. And it's expected that you should be able to do it all. And the people who hire a nanny or a respite or a cleaner or anything to be like, I need some help or I want to put my kid in daycare for a while to give me a break. It's
Yeah.
shamed a lot.
Yeah.
Like you should be able to do that though, shouldn't you?
Yeah. Yeah. Who letting someone else raise your children? Like, ow, holy mom pain. They're going to throw it in someone's heart. Like, go to dagger, you're going to put in someone's face. If they have no community and daycare happens to be their community, then let's not shame each other. We're all doing the best we can to raise these kids, and community is a massive part of that. So I think just, yeah, to start with that of like innate. And so teaching skillful is that we have community to teach us other skills to bounce ideas off of. I mean, those mom groups and colleagues and people around me having children at the same time was invaluable. I was the first one in my friend group to have kids and first one in my family to have kids. And so I was like, well, I kind of don't have anybody else in my friend group or my family to rely on, so I need to look elsewhere to get some community support of how to do what I need to do here. And I made lots of mistakes
Wow.
along the way for sure, but I had a community, huge.
Yeah. Oh, and the community becomes so big because the way that a parent speaks to their child becomes that child's internal self-talk.
Right? Dr. Becky's words. Yes.
Totally. Like
Oh,
hits home so strong. I mean, even as a psychologist, as somebody who's, quote unquote, supposed to know
yeah.
all of these things, that when I heard her say that, that was like dagger to the heart of like, I mean, especially when you're a mom who's overwhelmed,
Yeah.
especially when the kids are younger, where it's like, I'm really overwhelmed and I'm feeling like I don't have any resources and any connects and any supports around me. And I'm like, this kid is exhausting. This
Yeah.
kid is too much. This
Yeah.
kid is too whiny. This kid, like all of those messages that we all have said. So there's no shame
And
around
they come out of
anybody
your
who's,
mouth. You're just too much. Why do you have to be so much? Why do you got to be so whiny? Right? Those come out of your mouth. And then, like you said, that becomes our self-talk. Oh,
yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. For, somebody like myself, even I have one that is my youngest. It's a lot more challenging than the other ones. that I recall anyway. Maybe they were, I don't remember. But when you do say those things, it would just be very important to, as quickly as they come out, to be able to retract that and say, that was wrong. I really want to redo that and say I'm sorry that I said that. I didn't mean that at all. I'm
Yeah.
so sorry.
Yeah.
You you are enough, or you're a wonderful child, you're a wonderful little being. Sometimes maybe the behavior I don't understand, but I love you. Because
Yeah.
I think that piece of it, right, is separating the
Yeah.
behavior from the person. So
Yeah.
kids, right, they go through the terrible 2s or 3s or 4s or however long it lasts for, but that's a behavior. That's not their identity.
Absolutely. It's part of our job. It's part of what we do for a living. Like I've sat with, you name it, I've sat with. I worked in this criminal justice, for a long time. And so I sat with murderers and rapists and molesters and all the stuff. And so to sit with someone and go, I can look at you, the human being, and separate you from your behavior. If I can do that in my job, I certainly can do that for my kids. Why does it feel so? Because we're triggered, because we're overwhelmed, because we come in the house with all of our stuff and we think now we can be unleashed. But that makes no sense. Logically, why would I give only 10% to my children and 100% to everybody else, or to my family? And 100%, that makes no sense. I'm also going to validate, I get it. Been there, we're raising kids, we're, working, we get stuff. So it's being compassionate to self, to be like, I only got 10%. If I only have that left to give, tell my partner or even your kid. If you're like, why do you got to be so much? And then you're pausing, like, sorry, that was a me statement. I'm actually feeling like right now my stuff is too much. And I said it out loud, pointing towards you, but has nothing to do with you. That's my stuff that's too much right now. Sorry about that. And it helps you regulate, to pause and go, I'm overwhelmed. I'm in my own, I only got 10% left. Speak that truth when you come in the house. I only got 10% left, kiddos. So we're ordering pizza and we're gonna, play cards on the floor because that's all I got left, or whatever it is.
Yeah. And depending on your kid's age, I mean, if they're 3, they might not have any idea what you're talking about.
Yes, true.
But if 9 or even 8, they might, depending.
Yeah.
But it is, I think the piece of it that becomes really important, which is Daniel Siegel's words of that, you connect
Yeah.
before you correct it, right? So it's like,
connect before you redirect. Yeah.
Before I can correct whatever behavior I did or behavior you did, it's like, I need to connect with you. So I think of, I can probably think of lots of examples, because mine, I still have a young one around. But whatever it is that she's done, I hear there's yelling and I go into the room and her and her brother are fighting or something, connecting first with both of them. Like, hey, you guys, come here. Like, come here, come give me a hug. Come tell me, like, come connect with me. Like, it's always, I'm going to connect with you first and be like, wow, this was really loud in here. Hey, there's some loud noises going on in here. I'd love to know what's going down. Like, what happened? Like, roof fall, like, what happened? And I'm usually, if I'm in my A game and I'm very regulated, which I hope to be, when I am, that's how I can connect with them first, to be a little bit playful, to be able to figure out, so and so kicked me or did that, and then it's okay. Like, I'm gonna connect with the kid and make sure that they feel connected and seen and heard and understood, and then talk about the behavior. Wow, tell me more about that kicking. Tell me about what happened.
What led to that behavior in the first place? Because what you're saying to them too is, I know you're a good kid. Like, I know you're a good kid. You're not a kicker by nature. That's not who you are. You're a good, kind, compassionate, lovable kid. And so if you're kicking or you're biting or you're punching, that's a behavior outside the box of who I know you to be. So tell me how this good kid did that thing.
Yeah.
Got to that place to be.
And what is that feeling? Because another big piece of this, I mean, for some people, they're okay with uncomfortable feelings, but for a lot of parents or just humans in general, they try and get out of those feelings really quickly. Like, I don't want to see this discomfort, right? And so it's like, but even as adults, I mean, you hear people say this, hey, you have to process your stuff before it'll go away. And it's no different with our kids. When our kids are upset, we have to let them sit in that upset or that frustration or that anger or that rage, whatever it is. It's like, hey, I'm gonna be here with you in this. I mean, you can't kick me and hurt me, but you're allowed to have those big feelings. You're allowed to be frustrated. You're allowed to be angry. I'm here with you. Not gonna take it away from you. I'm not gonna just quickly try and shift you and give you a candy bar or a phone. I'm gonna let you sit in that discomfort, and I'm gonna sit there with you.
Yeah. I'm thinking of a funny example. Even like today, like my 19-year-old today, he was supposed to do something and he didn't get it done. And so I was like, oh, so you know what happens? He's like, Mom, like, no video games tonight. He's like, are you kidding me? I'm laughing because I'm like, no, like that's just, so find something else to do. And he was just having these big, and I'm like, making fun of him having like a playful, but I'm also like, I know this sucks. He's like, you're the fun police. I'm like, yeah, I'm sure it seems that way. This is actually called parenting. This is actually called like accountability, but whatever. And I just let him like have his like kind of ragey moment for a sec. And then as I was like sitting beside him being like, I still love you and you're allowed to be mad at me. You're allowed to feel your feelings. Like you're allowed to be ragey and mad. I get that you're mad. It's okay. I'm still going to follow through. Like there's still no video games tonight. They're still off the thing, but right. And it took him like all of a minute and a half probably to like, I guess I'll go golfing instead. I'm like, okay, wasn't part of the agreement. Feel free, go outside. Yeah, you can go outside. You can do something else instead. Right. So, but I'm thinking of another scenario. So that's an easier one for me. But when my daughter, especially, probably my son too, my daughter went through some really, really tough times, like really emotional, really dark moments. Those ones are harder for me. I don't know if other parents feel the same, but where, when your kid comes home or you walk in the room and you just know they're in a deep, dark space and there's a like a fear in there as a parent, like, you and I deal with this all day. The word suicide, it comes across my desk every single day. And, so I hear those words in my kid's mouth. I'm like, okay, much as I want to shit them out of that really quickly and be like, okay, well, let's look at your great life and look how many people love you. And right, to pause and be like, thanks for sharing that with me. That must have been really hard to share. And I have a big enough container to handle this really big thing you just shared and these deep emotions you're having. And I'm not going to like whoosh you out of it, which I really want to. And then mom hearts want to whoosh you out of it, just protect you and hug you and save you, make it all good. I'm going to sit here and feel it and have a container of like, this space that we're in and this parent that I'm with you in this container is big enough for the biggest of feelings you have, for the darkest of feelings you have. Tell me more about that. And I'm just really grateful that you're sharing it with me. That was probably the hardest parenting moment of my life. Like if I really boil it down, there's moments of that where I left the room and cried, not in front of her, left the room and cried. But even in those moments when and we've done those moments a few times over, where she's come back and been like, thanks, Mom, for just letting me share those with you. You're like, it was so, I can tell, but that was so hard to not want to pull you off that, metaphorical bench of, sadness and depression that you're in, just sit there with you and be in that space with you. And then employ you to be like, eventually she'll come with her own conclusions of like, I don't want to stay here long-term either. Well, how else can I get out of the pit that I'm in? Right. That's like the Brene Brown video we talked about earlier of like, the video, if you haven't seen it, watch the video, just Brene Brown, I think it's called Empathy actually is what the video is called, where the little, fox has a sad feeling and goes in this deep, dark pit. And then the bear, whatever, crawls down and is just like, I have no words for you, but I'll sit here with you, basically. Hard. Those are harder. For me personally, those were my hard parenting moments. The shifting of my son when he's angry. Anger, I like anger. I have no problem with anger, anxiety, those high, fast, big emotions. But the quiet, dark ones, those are painful.
Yeah. Yeah. I think anything where there's extreme loneliness or betrayal or where you're shunned, where you're like kicked out, where you're like, those feelings, any of those, I think as a parent, because I know for me too, it's hard not to, the only words coming up is personalize them. Like, I don't want my kids to feel uncomfortable emotions. I don't think any parent does.
No.
Doing our kids disservice by trying to make them happy. And there's this, think like we should make our kids happy. And I think that it is a massive disservice because resilience is built by allowing people to feel uncomfortable emotions and moving through them. Because when you move through them, hopefully you get to the other side at some point, right? And you're like, I'm through it, right? Like we go through times in life. We all do. Nobody will get through this existence without going through hard times. But there's no bypassing. There's no skipping the level, and being like, oh, I'm going to jump through that, or I'm going to, you have to move through it. So if we can move through it with our kids, and just hold them through it and cry on the side and have our own supports. I mean, really, it's painful and it's hard, but that's part of life. Pain is part of, if we don't experience pain, how can we feel joy and love? I mean, you have to experience all of them.
Well, and like you said, the container, right? So the situation was someone left, more than one time, notes in her locker as like a grade 5 kid that she should die. No one wants her. She should kill herself. That was right. And so she was having that experience. And so much as like, I'm like ragey inside and mad about the nose and also terrified of like this effect on her, right? Having that big enough space. And like you said, the other side of that is that if I try to, go over those feelings really fast, it's fine. Everyone loves you. It's right with my panic or my, want to just bulldoze into happy joy place. I'm telling her that those feelings she's having aren't safe and secure. Those aren't okay feelings to have. And so you better bulldoze those in your real life too. So whenever you have a feeling that feels deep and hard, bulldoze those or just get rid of them fast, which isn't the whole spectrum of the human experience. What I want to say is, oh my gosh, that's massive. And, let me just sit in the space and like, just even hearing those words and that you're seeing the note in her hand and seeing her face, I was like, right. I can see how she's feeling in real time. I can feel it now in my body as I'm talking about it. Like it's a moment I'll never forget. Right. But giving her the space. And again, we've done that talk one or two times. It's recycled multiple times. I remember that time. Yep. Let's make space for it. Let's give it the honor that it deserves. Because on the other side is your resiliency, like you said. On the other side is, I know what it feels like to have a really big experience, a really big feeling, and feel grounded and safe enough to go all the way through and not get tipped over. Use my metaphor of the ship all the time, right? I'm in the ship and there's a big fucking wave coming and it's big and it's going to crash into my ship and I'm going to feel the whole ship rock and I'm going to feel seasick and I'm going to feel all the stuff in my body. But when I open my eyes eventually, I realized the sea gets calm again because I didn't die and I didn't try to jump ship, which is us pushing us out of our feelings. I stayed present and stayed in it, felt it, right? It's such a metaphor it's such a resilient skill for life that whatever big feeling comes my way now, I'm like, in my mind, I'm like, whatever big feeling comes her way, she's got a real big ship to go, okay, I know how to deal. I don't like the feeling of it. It doesn't feel good, but I have a big enough ship to handle big feelings and I can sit with it for, as long as it takes, go all the way through it more than one time sometimes.
Yeah. And you as the parent, when you're able to regulate yourself enough to be able to hold that little person, your person in the container of like, I've got you. And it's, I'm not taking it away from you, but I'm giving you that support and that love and that place to be like, we're going to be okay. We're going to be okay through, right? And it's like, as long as we're not alone, we can get through things in life, right? I mean, it's that loneliness that just is the worst. I mean, and so, but as a parent, I mean, it's hard. It's always hard to go through those times where kids are in pain. I think there's probably nothing. I agree. There's anything harder.
Like I had a client literally last week, a young client who's, they're just turning 13. Same thing. Or she finally got the courage. So the email came from the parent was like, can you see this kid? She needs some equine therapy for trauma. And I was like, sure. And then it turned out that the kid had sent her a letter saying that she wanted to kill herself. But it took her so much courage to finally tell that mom that this, and she sent it to her in a text of all things because she couldn't do it face to face. And I said to the mom, like, what was your response? And I actually asked the kid and mom in person. And the mom's response was brilliant. She just said, thank you for sharing that with me. Like she was, I didn't know what else to say. And then she called me and I was like, yeah, I'll come in. I'll bring you guys the next day. But what a gift. I said to the daughter, you now know whatever your feelings are, your mom's there for you. And she's not going to try to fix it, but she can just make space. You can have, that's a big feeling for a kid. And again, lots of kids, most kids have that at some point of their life. It's just true. Most kids do. Like my teenager that wants to do the podcast, he says he thinks every kid, if not 99% of them, has, a feeling of that at some point in their life. So to bring that to your parent without parent going, okay, let's fix it. Instead of just being like, okay, let's talk about this. Let's bring that experience you're having in your emotional, non-rational, not logical part of your system, possibly, right? To the system, to the container. And let's just create a safe enough space for it to be present right here with us. And let's just make space that's so loving, so secure, so safe that doesn't feel unsafe to tell me your truth. And then in that, eventually, I'll contain it and be like, so as a parent, I'm going to find some steps to make sure that you're safe and secure because I love you. But I'm not going to try to bulldoze you out of the feelings.
No. And I think saying that, Alicia, it's like, as therapists, we're saying this of like, okay, you knew how to respond to that because you've done it in sessions so many times, right? So you already have a memory of this. And I think that that's one piece for parents to realize that it's a good idea to talk about how you want to respond to things. Like it's the same as anything, right? Like I feel like there's so many examples I could think of, but like we plan and prepare and predict, right? And that's how we know our response to things. Like if this happens, I can do this. If this happens, I can do this. So how do we talk as parents to be like, how do we want to respond when or if our kid comes to us with a really heavy feeling, or it could be the feeling, or it could be the behavior.
Yeah.
How do we want to respond when our kid has, let's take younger kids, a behavioral response, right? And so no matter what, we want to correct, or we want to connect first, connect always first. It's always connection first, no matter what it is. We're connecting first, and then we're trying to understand whether it's the big feeling and just supporting it, or if it's the behavior. You have to understand the behavior. If it's a little kid who kicked her brother, you have to understand that behavior. Help me understand that behavior. I felt tight in my body. Tell me more. I felt like I just wanted to hit him because he didn't understand me.
There you go.
Wow. I felt really misunderstood. You felt really misunderstood. Where did you feel that in your body? I felt it in my chest and my fists, and I wanted to punch him and kick him. Wow, those are really big feelings. So now I can understand the behavior because I'm understanding the feeling that was attached to it, but we didn't go there first. So it's that connection. And so when you have teenage kids or really young kids, remember, connect first before you can figure out what's really going on or correct it.
Yeah. Connect to understand either the behavior or the words or the threats, like whatever that is, or even the feelings. Connect to understand, like, I just feel like this. Keep connecting to understand what's behind that, what's behind that, what's behind that. But just a big enough, safe enough space to keep asking, tell me more.
Yeah.
But when you're ready to, I'm just going to sit here with you. Make sure, let you know that I'm safe, I'm regulated, I'm secure. Yeah. Tell me more. I understand. Because again, I think that what you said is a really important point to bring up, that preparing, planning, predicting for when things are going to happen. Who's your co-parent or co-parents? Maybe it's grandparents, or like who's in the system with you. If it's your nanny, your co-parents, your teachers, whatever it is. And here's how do we want to handle these things when these things come up? Like, what is our philosophy and our values around parenting? If you have that kind of boiled down philosophy of, okay, our intention is this. And so in the bigger picture of things, we're always going to go after connection first. Okay. That's a really good, linear way to think of it. Like, so whatever happens, if they're like biting the sister, kicking the dog, or whatever, or coming home with suicidal ideations, connection first. If that's always my go-to, I'm going to pause and go, how can I connect first? Behavior second.
Yeah. Yeah. And like we've said in many other podcasts, person first. So that's the same thing, right? It's the person first, the behavior second, or the problem second. It's person.
Yeah.
Person or connection first. And this, a lighter example of this could also be if your kid comes home one day and is like, I'm doing really bad in science and I failed science and I'm so bad at science and everybody else is so good at science. It's like we as parents often want to I guess there's different ways, right? Some parents might shame them for that and be like,
what's wrong with you?
Yeah.
Because you didn't study hard enough. You didn't learn hard enough. Or you must be a stupid teacher. You're actually really smart. Must be totally your teacher's fault. Neither one of those are useful.
Yeah, no, or even, you're really good at dance and you're really good at playing Fortnite and you're really good at all these other things, right? It's again, we're trying to get our kid out of an uncomfortable feeling rather than let them feel it and sit there with them. I can't make you better at science. Maybe it's a support thing. Maybe you need some more support around science and I'm going to sit here with you and I'm going to connect with you and you're allowed to feel really crappy but I'm here for you. And then when you're a bit calmer, maybe we can talk about some
strategies.
Ways. Yeah. If you want to be better, then maybe we can help you with that, but it's okay to be feeling like you're the worst. That's a real feeling.
It's a real feeling. And it's a real feeling to just pause and go, oh yeah, our education system compares each other. That's real. So these kids are all comparing to each other in the classroom and no, they're not going to be good at all the subjects. So that's real. Yeah. It's tough to compare yourself to the person beside you that's really good at science. That's just real.
Yeah, it is. It is real. Another thing that I think is an important kind of topic with parenting is understanding that for most of us, our kids trigger us.
Right? Ooh. Yeah. No, they don't.
I think that we because there are kids that it should like they're just they're loving and they're a connection of us and they're just, it's like, but the reality is that every kid is going to trigger you at some point. So just know that is normal, and be aware of it. I think that you can't change what you don't acknowledge. So acknowledge that, whoa, there was a trigger there. And what's really for me, oh, wow, I'm personalizing that. I'm thinking, or maybe it's a mirror. Sometimes for me, when my kids trigger me, they're actually doing what I do. And I'm like, oh, man, does that infuriate me.
You're
Don't
like,
be me. I get to be me.
do better, act better, say better, walk better, talk better, do it all better than I'm teaching you, that I'm walking and talking. They're like, oh, they're actually mirroring exactly what I'm doing. Yes. Well, there's an invite there, right? So if your kids, again, they're going to trigger us for sure. We all have unfinished stuff. And the more we finish our stuff, the more the other stuff shows up. Like, welcome to, being a human on this planet. But there's an invite there to go, my kid's triggering me. Fair enough. So what is in here for me to learn? What is in here for me to grow? Like, hey, thanks, kiddo, which you're not going to say to them out loud probably, but to pause and be like, this thing right now that's happening that's causing me to rage inside or feel sad or feel shame, whatever it is inside of myself. There's an invite there of unfinished stuff that I can take care of in my own system. I'm not going to outsource that to my kid, first of all, not my kid's job. Or to my partner, probably. I'm going to insource that to myself and then share with my partner, hey, this thing happened today, it was really hard, right? I can use some feedback or use some guidance or use some support, but I'm going to insource a pause and be like, my body again, my feelings are going to give me some really good feedback. There's an invite there
Yeah,
to grow. Always.
always.
What grows you
And
more than kids? I don't even know. Like, that's probably the biggest teaching on the planet, right? And my kids have taught me more than anything.
oh yeah. I agree. I remember after having my first two kids, and I remember this one couple, they're one of my favorite couples I've ever worked with. And they have a really stressful child, very, very stressful child. And I would help them, in couples therapy. And I'm like, I know it's a parenting problem. And so I'm like, what am I missing here? And then I had my third kid, and I realized with all of the skills that I have, and I know she still triggered me, and she has a different temperament.
Mhm.
It made me realize that all this shit that I thought that I had, like that I had dealt with, was not actually. It's still all inside of there. And it's like, wow, just that tuning in of I'm really aware that this is still something that's inside of there, and I need to still do some more work around that.
Right? That's the invite. It's a nice way to say deal with your shit. It's the invite to grow.
Oh,
It's so true. Or like situations with our kids, even if it's not our kids triggering us specifically, a situation happens where, we teach our kids boundaries. Like I'm right, teach my daughter, my daughter's got really good boundaries, like actually really good boundaries. But once in a while it triggers me because I'm a pleaser. And so she'll say things like, or she'll just won't do things. I'm like, you probably should like, you know, smile or hug that person or whatever. And then I'm like, actually, no, she shouldn't. She's allowed to have body autonomy. And so her not doing stuff or her having boundaries triggers my lack of boundaries sometimes. Again, invite to grow, invite to pay attention, invite to learn these things. Yeah.
yes, definitely. The other thing that I was thinking with that as well is just um, when we are triggered by our kids, to be able to notice that and allow our kids also to feel that frustration.
Yeah.
So I'm going to give a little example. Every parent knows when their kid is driving them crazy in the car, right? They're frustrated. And what do parents want to do? We want that frustration to stop. One, we're trying to focus on the road. It's like, talk about distracted driving law. Like, it's like, well, if you have a child, you have a distraction all the time.
Yeah.
And so it's like, here's the phone, here's a cookie, I'll buy you a toy if you're good. Like we instantly want to stop that frustration because it's frustrating us as well. But that builds entitlement. And so
Yes.
what I started to do, because my kid does this in the car still, because I've got a 6-year-old, I pull over, and sometimes we'll get out of the car if needed to get some fresh air. But if not, we just sit there and I put my hand on her knee and I look at her and I'm like, it's okay to feel frustrated. Mommy feels frustrated too. It's okay. It's
Yeah.
okay to feel frustrated. And we're just going to sit there in that until that goes away, rather than me giving something which just reinforces the frustration, and that causes or creates entitlement.
Yeah, well, that's a really good point. Yeah, right. So you're thinking in the car, so you're just like, here, have the thing, or at the mall, or at church, or I'm making dinner and right, I'm making dinner and you're being busy, so I'm just gonna like give you the candy first. Or what, I'm just now letting my kid know a couple of things. Like that's how they get what they want, is just increase the frustration, like increase the level of, whatever it is, rage, anger, whiny, whatever. I'm just reinforcing that behavior actually by giving them what they want. It's like if my horse keeps pushing me, I finally give them a treat. I just tell my horse that's why he gets his treat rather than wait. Or a dog. It's the same thing. They're going to learn from positive reinforcement. But I love what you just said. Then in life, so now they're having to wait their turn in a line, or now they're having to wait for the promotion at the job, or wait for whatever. And they're impatient. We're not teaching patience. We're not teaching resiliency as a bigger scale again. We're teaching like, hurry up and quell that feeling rather than have a big feeling, feel frustrated. It's okay. The human emotion. It's part of the human experience. You get to have your big feeling. There's not going to be a quick like soother to put it out. Someone's going to just sit in your feeling and feel it. You're teaching your kid the skill of having self-regulation is what you're teaching them eventually.
Exactly. And like a final point that I wanted to chat about or mention before we're done today is people are hearing this on a podcast, right? And they're like, okay, so I'm going to try these things. I'm going to be more validating. I'm going to connect first before I correct. And I'm going to do these things. But we have
Dan
to
Siegel's work. If you want to look it up, that's Dan Siegel's. No, connect before you redirect. Connect to redirect. Yeah.
And favorite book of his for me is Whole Brain Child, although all of them. But we have to remember that the brain is processing intention before language. So your intention as a parent, if you're like, okay, so you're allowed to have big feelings, you're allowed to be frustrated. Like, if I'm saying that speech or I'm saying that kind of cold, that is what is going to come through before the actual words. We've talked about this lots, the nonverbal kind of language being much more important or communication than the actual word. So make sure that you're very aware of your own arousal and your own intention, because if you say, in a frustrated way, like, you're allowed to have big feelings. Big feelings are big and they're really big and they're really allowed to have them. Like, okay, that intention feels very frustrated in itself. So really being aware of your own arousal and your own kind of intention around how you're connecting with your kids, because you can think that you're saying all the right things, but if you're not in that right state, then it's always going to land in the state that you're in. So remember that.
Agreed. And I think having a why. So if you're nothing else, take with this podcast, get clear on your why. What is your mission statement around parenting? What is your intention around parenting? What are your top 1 or 2 intentions? And then boil it back down to that. If my intention is this, then this makes the most sense. If my intention is this, I will do this. Even if my parts we want to yell, or parts we want to, get rushy. But if my intention is relationship first, or the connection first, then the content's out the window. So get an intention, get really clear with your intention. That will help guide your behavior.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And if you have a partner, talk to them about this as well, because often we see our couples and they'll come in and they'll say, we do have different parenting styles. We have different, and it's like, that's okay. Yeah. You just have to have a game plan. Same as if you were a coach and you were coaching a team, you have to have a game plan of how you're going to tackle this team that's better than you. Right. So it's like, how are we going to regulate these kids? How do we want to raise them? How do we want to show up? And as long as you guys are on the same page, you get to support each other and remember that you're not alone in this. I mean, even people like us who do this for a living, we mess up with our kids. And if anything, we just correct quickly. Like if there's the default, you screw up, correct it quickly, take accountability, validate them, do some reassurance and do a redo, try again.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Reach out. There's supports out there. There's lots of supports now. If you don't, there's no manual, there are some manuals now. So there's lots of good research. Dan Siegel's one, Becky we talked about. Dr. Becky Kennedy's another good one. Lynn Lyons is a good one. There's lots. So we can put some in the show notes. Reach out.
Yeah. Yes, for sure.
Awesome.
Happy parenting.
Ditto.
Yeah.
Thanks so much for joining us.
We're really glad you're here with us on this journey.
The best way to support this podcast is to subscribe and give it a 5-star review.
See you next time.
This has been a Bread Dog Studios production.